get started. Now, I'm also going to put you through a little bit of a presentation, but what we're going to do today is focus really on, barcoding, and of course in the retail industry, but we're going to cover off a little bit of the distribution center side of it as well, because it's all related. So the goal for today, and hopefully everybody can see my screen okay. The goal for today, we're just going to do, quick overview of how you can set up Business Central. So today we're focused on Business Central, which, hopefully you're all on it or know of it. If not, it really is the ERP for mid-size businesses like yours. And it's going to help you drive your, your change, your adoption of change and everything else that we just talked about. So anyway, we'll go through Business Central options, talk a little bit about barcoding, and then the bulk of the session today is going to be looking at the software, looking at how we do barcoding within the system. All right, with that, and feel free to ask questions as we go. We'll probably answer them at the end, but if I see any pop up during the session, I'll answer them for you. All right, so a little bit about us. So I'm president of Insight Works, and we work globally with people like you that are in retail and distribution and manufacturing and things like that to deliver the solutions. We're based in Canada, but we work globally, and we work with Optimus to deliver these solutions. All right, now what are those solutions? Come on. PowerPoint's not working. All right, so those solutions really relate to inventory, barcoding, manufacturing, those sorts of things. So let's talk about how those fit into Business Central really quickly. Now, Business Central does have built-in inventory and warehouse management capabilities, right? So when we talk about WMS or warehouse management system, we tend to think of it running in a warehouse because it's called warehouse management. But those capabilities also work very well in retail environments. So even if you don't have a distribution center, even if you just have a kiosk somewhere or a small retail store, or you have a number of retail stores with a distribution center, Business Central has the appropriate capabilities to manage all of those environments for you. All right. Now, within Business Central, the way it's set up, it's got all those capabilities, but it's intended to run as a paper-based. In other words, when you count inventory or when you pick inventory or receive it, it assumes you're going to be working with paper, writing things down, and then typing them into the computer later. Obviously, we're not going to do that. We want to do barcoding. We want to be able to capture that information directly. Now, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, it does provide those basic and advanced WMS capabilities. And so when we talk about WMS, you tend to think of the advanced stuff in the distribution center, but we can use those in the retail environment as well. Okay, so when you set up Business Central for your inventory management and your warehouse management and your store management, there's a few decisions you need to make. So I'm going to run through these just so you get a scope or an idea of the scope of what Business Central offers. So the first one is something called bins. Now, in a warehouse environment, you typically do want to enable bins because a bin will tell you where that product is. So if I look up a product, it will say that's in bin A1, and you have 10 of them there, and you also have 10 in bin, X5. That's what bins do. It allows you to see what quantity of product you have at each shelf within the warehouse. Well, that doesn't make sense for a retail store, though, right? A retail store, you're likely not going to turn on bins because you might have that same product on 3 different shelves. It moves around every day. You're probably not going to set up any bins in a retail environment. So that's a decision to make as to how you set up your environment. And then there's something called warehouse documents. And the warehouse documents, again, are typically related to the warehouse, but they do add value in a retail environment as well. So what they allow you to do is sort of isolate these different activities from the front office. So essentially, the people in the warehouse, when they're doing shipping, they'll never see a sales order. So they'll never see, pricing or costs or anything like that. When they're receiving, same thing, they don't see the costs. They don't actually see the purchase order. They see what we call a warehouse document for that. So the receiving side is useful in retail environments because it allows you to receive multiple transfers from a DC or from another store, or multiple purchase orders all on one document within the system. So what that means is I might get 3 transfer orders from the DC in one box, I can receive them all together as one document instead of receiving 3 individual transfers from the DC. Where I've got 5 different purchase orders coming from the vendor on the same day, I can receive them all at once. I don't have to receive those 5 individually. So some of these, warehouse documents are actually useful within the retail environment. And this is where you would talk to Optimus. They can help you sort out, what configuration you need for your particular environment. And then finally, there's an advanced WMS within Business Central, and it's called, directed put away and pick. And that you would really only turn on in a warehouse environment. So once you've done that, you're going to go in, you're going to set up all of your parameters for, doing the warehouse management within Business Central and your retail store and your distribution center. And then you're going to start using it. So this first one here, that is your first decision. We talked about that. The bin handling is going to be your first decision that you need to make as far as, how are you setting up your environment. Okay. The next thing you need to do is, as we talked about, decide what type of warehouse document you want to use. And when we're talking, if you already have Business Central and you're using some of these warehouse documents in the warehouse, you don't want to use those in a store. So you do set up different, what we call locations within Business Central. And each location is either a store or a warehouse. In the stores, you probably don't want to use the warehouse documents other than maybe on the receiving side. What you may want to use is what we call the inventory documents. And again, this is just a quick overview. Talk to Optimus. They'll be able to help you decide which one makes the most sense for you, right? Because an inventory document is quite simple to use. You'll get a pick document if you're in the warehouse or in the store, and you can just pick it and post that document, and it'll do the shipping and everything for you at the same time. So these are questions you need to decide when you set up the store and the warehouse environment. And this will also affect how we do the barcoding as well. Right. The next thing we need to worry about is, actually, sorry, I skipped a slide there, but that's okay. I mentioned this briefly already, but if you do decide to use the warehouse documents, again, those are typically, they're called warehouse documents because you use them in the warehouse. So they're typically used in the warehouse, but again, you can use them in the retail store. And what they allow us to do is 2-stage processing, which is important in the warehouse, where I can have one person doing the picking and another person doing shipping. I can have one person doing receiving and another person doing the put away. So we get that 2-step process. I receive something and then I put it away. Well, in the retail environment, you probably wouldn't have that. You'll have one person receiving, and once they've received it, it's done. But again, the other part of it is it allows us to combine those orders together. So it allows us to combine purchase orders or sales orders or transfer orders together under one document so that I can do things in batch. I don't have to receive 5 purchase orders. I receive 1 warehouse receipt and I'm good. Okay. So this warehouse documents you typically turn on in the warehouse, but I did want to, emphasize the fact that you want to look at it because it may make sense for retail environment. And sometimes that warehouse document, the warehouse term, scares people off because they think it's only for the warehouse when it can be used in a store as well. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about barcoding, because all of those documents that I just talked about, all of that configuration, everything else, like I said, Business Central expects you to do all that on paper. Even if I use a warehouse receipt in the store, I get 5 purchase orders in from the vendor. I've got a piece of paper. I've got packing slips. I got to write on them. I got to hand them in. Somebody's got to type in the data, all that sort of thing. That is not ideal. We don't want to do that. We want to replace that paper management with barcoding. And if you're running Business Central, really any ERP system, you're dealing with all sorts of information in there, right? Your stock levels, right? Customers are phoning up. Do you have this in stock? What's the price? Those sorts of things. You need to know what's coming in. I don't have it in stock now, but it's coming in tomorrow, or I just received it, or the warehouse has it. All of those things, the inventory levels, what's coming in, all of that kind of stuff, very important to have in a retail environment. And it can be a very big competitive advantage. If you know exactly what's going on in your environment in real time, down to the second, that's hugely important. If you're doing paper-based processing, you're not going to get that visibility. You're not going to have that timely and accurate information, right? What's going to happen is people are going to lose the paper. They're going to receive something in the store, they're going to write it down on the piece of paper, and they're going to forget to type it in, or it's going to be sitting at the coffee machine or something like that, right, until they find it. Or they're going to type in the wrong information. They're going to receive part A when really they received part B. They just typed it in wrong. So all of those sorts of things are going to add a lot of pain and a lot of cost to your organization, especially in retail, when you do have customers that are phoning in, that are coming into the store and asking you things. When you're planning on your stocking levels, what do you need to stock on your shelf? You need to avoid all of this. You need that real-time information. You need to get it in, as it happens, and you need to prevent those entry errors. So, and again, we kind of went through this already, but the big one in retail is that poor customer service, right? You're going to lose sales if you don't have good information within the system. But a couple other ones, I mean, you can't overstock. If you forget to, receive something because you lost the paperwork, it'll show in your store that you've got lower stock than required, and you're going to order more, right? If you're running the planning worksheet, or your distribution center is handling the stocking for you, they're going to overstock you. And you don't want that either, right? So very important that we have that timely and accurate information. So the way we do that mostly is barcoding, right? That's why you're here. There's lots of ways you can do it. We have lots of people in retail ask us about RFID and technologies like that. RFID has its place, but it's still, doesn't have the level of adoption of barcoding. So very few products actually are RFID enabled. So it tends to be a very expensive approach to start using RFID. On the other hand, barcoding, everything has a barcode on it today. Like everything has a barcode, and the hardware is cheap. The implementation is cost effective. It really is the way to go if you want to improve your data accuracy and timeliness. All right. So this is what we're going to go through today. Now, as far as software goes, the two that we're covering off today are this WMS Express and Warehouse Insight. And both of them will work in distribution centers or warehouses and retail stores. This free one, if you're on the Business Central Cloud version, then you get this thing for free. And if you're in the on-premises version, or if you need to, do a lot more, then the full version is the subscription-based option. Okay, and then there's a bunch of other tools that may assist. I'm going to cover off a little bit on shipping in here, because shipping is important in this type of environment as well. All right, now, so you need to make a decision on software. Of course, Business Central is the ideal software for you. And then once you've decided on Business Central, or if you're on NAV and you want to upgrade. Now, by the way, if you're on the old NAV platform, we do support that as well. But ideally, you'd move to Business Central to get all the benefits out of that Business Central platform. But if you have NAV, you can stay on there as well if you like. So once you've got your inventory software, Business Central or NAV, you've decided on your warehouse software, which like Warehouse Insight or WMS Express, you then need to decide on scanners. And I'll show you what we're using for scanners here in a bit. But you can use really any maker model. We typically recommend, Datalogic, Honeywell, or Zebra, the big three. You can also use phones. So we do see this in retail environments where you don't need to scan that often. You can use a phone with a camera on the phone to do the scanning, but it's a little more slow and clunky than using an actual dedicated scanner. And the dedicated scanners aren't actually that much money. And then this little guy over here, this handheld scanner, that's just a USB scanner that attaches to a PC. That's good for doing receiving or inventory counts if you're running a tablet or something like that. So you can use something like that with a tablet or with a desktop computer to scan your barcodes as well. And you might already have something like that at your registers for scanning UPC codes and those sorts of things. All right, so that's a little bit on the hardware. Now, when you choose the hardware, for the warehouse, you want something rugged. For a store, it's not that important. The warehouse, we care about how far, the barcode can be when we scan. So if we're scanning a pallet at the top rack, we want a long range. If you're in a store, you don't care. You're just going to be standing beside the product you're scanning. And then the camera is important as well, both at the store level and at the warehouse level, because this allows us to take photos when we're receiving product. If we're receiving damaged product or the wrong product, we can take photos of that, and that'll automatically upload and attach into Business Central so the purchaser has what they need to start a claim. We can also use that capability in shipping, so we can take photos as we ship the product, that sort of thing. All right, so There's a whole bunch. These are the primary requirements or decision factors you need for selecting the device. But there's usually two typical types of device that you would select. One is a smaller handheld device, sometimes without any keyboard at all, and other times it will be a full warehouse style device. All right, now with that, let's actually jump in and see what this stuff looks like. So what I'm going to do very briefly, just so you know, I've got a bunch of tabs open on the side here, and I'll be switching between them because I've got some set up for stores and some set up for warehouses. And I'm very briefly just going to talk about what we've got set up for the warehouse and a little bit about how we process those documents inside Business Central. So if you're not familiar with Business Central, I'm in the cloud version here of Business Central. And the barcoding that we're going to be doing is going to be connecting to this cloud version from my office here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just really quickly go over the locations here that I've got set up. And again, the locations are a warehouse or a store. It's anywhere where we can store inventory. And each of these will have a different configuration. So if we go into my main distribution center here, you can see that, in the warehouse configuration, I've got essentially everything turned on. So I've got the advanced warehousing turned on, which means, I can run a 200,000 square foot distribution center or whatever using these particular configurations, right? I'm using bins, right? I'm using the warehouse documents. I'm doing all of that kind of stuff to manage that more advanced warehouse. But I've also got things like, a store setup. And when we look at the store, I've got nothing turned on. And the reason is, in the store, I'm just going to receive a transfer order or a purchase order into the store. I don't need necessarily to use that warehouse receiving document. But again, that is something that you might want to turn on if you do tend to get multiple transfer orders simultaneously from the DC, right? We see that very often, where during the week, orders from the stores go into the DC and they pick them and stage them, and then they ship out once a week. So once a week, you'll get a shipment from the distribution center that might be 3 or 4 different transfer orders on that shipment. And using that warehouse receipt will help you receive that product easily. All right. So again, the store doesn't have any of these capabilities turned on. It's very basic. I just have inventory in this location somewhere. And when we set that up, you can still tell the system where that inventory resides. So I don't have this bins turned on. So in other words, we're not going to know that, product A is in bin 2 or something like that, because we don't have the bins. But what you can do is you can set up the stock keeping units in Business Central, and that allows you to record by location. So in this particular store, I can say, for this particular item in that particular store, that blue store, here is where I store that particular item. So I know where I normally keep that item in the blue store. And in, the main store or something like that, it might be in a completely different location. Right? So you still have the ability to track where that product is. And that's important as well when we're doing the inventory counts. So when you're doing an inventory count, and you may have this product in the store in several different locations. Maybe you have some at the front counter, maybe you have some at the shelf, maybe you have some, in the back room and storage. When we count that, we need to know where we counted that product so that we can reconcile it. If I counted an extra 100 out front, I need to know that it was out front that I counted those and not in the back room. So the shelf number is very useful when we do the inventory counts as well. All right. Now, that's basically it. So I'm not going to go through a ton of details on how we set up the environment. You just need to know that there are a lot of different ways to do that. You would talk to Optimists. They can help you decide on how you want to set that up. We can have the distribution centers and the stores together. And if you don't have a distribution center, no problem. You just set it up and you have a store or any number of stores, and we start working. Now, the way we actually execute that, now again, here I'm sort of in the distribution center environment. And let's say I'm receiving orders from the stores. And the way you set that up is really dependent on how you want that to work. There is something called a Requisition Worksheet within Business Central that you can use to actually go in and plan what you need to ship to the store. So in the Requisition Worksheet, the stores can come in and essentially request items, or they can have minimum stocking quantities. So you can go in there and you can say for a specific item, I'm always stocking 5 in this store and 10 in that store. And using this, we can actually come in here, calculate the plan, and it'll tell us exactly what we need to purchase for those stores or what we need to transfer to those stores from the warehouse. Okay, so sorry, I just noticed a question there on the thing. Now, that requisition worksheet that would come in, and somebody, the purchaser or the warehouse, the distribution manager will come in, they'll run this, and they'll decide, do we transfer it, do we buy it at a per store location? And if they use transfer, it'll generate a transfer order automatically for that store and go out to the warehouse to be picked. All right. Now, the way that looks from a warehouse perspective, and we'll get into the store in a sec. If I open this up, I can run the requisition worksheet, and maybe it just goes through and looks at all the stocking levels of the stores and automatically generates all the transfer orders for me. So here's a transfer order generated from my distribution center to my main store, and it's got these items on it. So this is what we're going to transfer between those stores, right? So we're transferring from, my main distribution center here off to my store. This says warehouse, but that's actually my main store. Okay, so that's the transfer order. Now, the way that gets executed within the warehouse is, again, I've got the advanced warehousing turned on. So we actually define a shipment, and that shipment can have multiple transfer orders on it. So one shipment could have that transfer order on it plus 2 others coming from that store, or maybe there's a special order they want to add on to that shipment and everything else. And then I also have a pick document that gets sent to the warehouse. So that pick document, let's actually have a look at that. So from the transfer order, it's actually generated a pick document within Business Central. And here's the pick for those items. And it's telling me what I need to pick, the quantity, everything else. Now, in Standard Business Central, I can actually use this. I can print this out. I can come back in after they've picked it. I can type in all the quantities that I've picked, and I can now ship this out from Business Central. But again, that becomes very error prone. Did I pick the right product? Did I hand in the paperwork in time? Did it get shipped out properly? All those sorts of things. So we want to avoid that paper. So instead of doing that, what I will do is I'll switch to the handheld device. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share on my screen here. Hopefully, if it comes up. There we go. This is the device that I have in my hand. So you're actually seeing the device on my desk here that I'm using. There's 2 devices, this little guy here and this one here. And I'm actually going to use this to do that picking and receiving and everything else. So just so you can see the screen better, here is the screen from the device that I have in my hand. So as I move things around, you'll see it update. And I'm going to open up that pick document. So instead of doing it from within Business Central, I'm going to do it from the handheld here. I'm going to open it up and do that pick. Now, just a quick note on the devices. We talked about that before, but this is a typical warehouse style device, right? It's a fairly large device. You can get a pistol grip for it, so you can hold it like that. It's got the camera on it and those sorts of things, and the keyboard here to type in. And this is a fairly high-end device. This is very rugged style device. On the other hand, we've got something more like this, which is it's the size of a phone, a little thicker, but it's basically the size of a phone. It's got this nice little keypad on there, so you don't have to tap the screen all the time. And something like this is about $600. And this works great in a retail environment. Very easy to use. You can have one of these per store, and you can use it to scan everything. I mean, people use this in a warehouse as well, but this is more typically the style of device you would find in a store. So we'll get back to that guy in a sec. But let's focus on this one. So now what I've got is I've got that shipment and pick document created, and I need to go out, pick the product, and get it out the door. So the way I do that is I simply go, as the person that's responsible for picking the product, I go into the pick screen here. I'm just going to grab my barcodes on the other sheet on the other side here. Sorry. All right, so I got some barcodes here. Okay, so what's going on here? So normally that'll load instantly. So hopefully my Business Central isn't being upgraded by somebody. But anyway, here's all the pick documents in the system that I have within Business Central. And that pick number 9 is the one that we looked at previously. So normally what will happen is, people will print out the pick document, and you can see at the top here, it says, scan the document. So I might still have that piece of paper that shows up on the printer. I can scan that to load the pickup, and I can leave that piece of paper at shipping so they know what to do. In my case, I'm just going to grab it from the screen, hit the enter key on my keypad here, and it opens up that pick document on the screen for me. And there's everything I need to transfer to my store. And that's basically it. So now what I do, oh, and by the way, you'll notice it does say bin here. It says bin there because I'm in a warehouse environment. I have those bins enabled. So the system knows exactly where I can find that particular item. It's telling me, go to this shelf. That's where you'll find this item. All right. And if it wasn't in that, it would give me a different place to look for that item. If you don't have bins on, it just knows I have a bunch of this stuff in stock, but it won't know where it is in the warehouse. It'll have a shelf number, but it won't know exactly where. So when you're in a retail environment, you just wouldn't have this bin screen there or a bin field there at all. Now, let's say I go to that bin and it's empty and I can't find what I'm looking for. Well, what you can do is you can actually drill down. I just hit the button on my keypad, but I could use the menu. I'll show you that in a sec. And what it does is it opens it up. Now, this is kind of boring because normally it'll show me all the other locations where I have that item in. Now, this screen here is also very useful in the retail environment because you can put whatever information you want on the screen that you like. So you can have, and that's just done in Business Central. So you go into Business Central and you use the configuration, and you can add whatever you like to it. So as an example here, I've got the price. So if I'm in a store, I could scan a barcode or just look up an item from a list, right? So you can actually do an item lookup from here as well, and it'll tell me what I have in stock. And we can list all the other stores that you care about. So maybe you have 3 stores. Yeah, maybe this store doesn't have it, but I could see the other 2 stores maybe do have it. So I can use this to do inventory inquiry for other stores. I can look at pricing. You could put things like, any fields you want on here, like the quantity coming in on purchase orders or any of those sorts of things, or the stock level in the warehouse, whatever you like. So in a retail environment, this item inquiry can be quite handy. I walk up to an item, I scan it, or maybe the item is empty. It's, the hook where the item is empty, but you have a barcode by that hook. I can scan that barcode. It can tell me what's supposed to be there, how much it costs, where it is, in the system, all of those sorts of things. And I can also come in here and look at the picture. I can also put the picture right on the screen as well, so that, if I don't know what it's supposed to look like, I scan that barcode, on where the hook is in the store, and it shows me the picture. Well, that's just sitting, somebody put it on the wrong spot. I'll move it over and put it where it's supposed to be. Or yeah, I saw some of these in the back. I'll go grab them, those types of things, right? So that picture is kind of handy. And you can actually put the picture right here on the screen. We've got something called fact boxes where I can put pictures or comments or any detail you want on the screen to make it a nice inventory inquiry screen for a retail environment. And I can also come in and look at things like recent transactions. So I can see, did I just order these things, right? Are they actually on the way? Or when was the last time I sold them? All of that kind of stuff you can do from the screen here as well. And I should mention down here, the lot number and serial number, and also here on the screen, we can track those serial numbers and lot numbers in that retail environment. So the way that works is, most of the time in retail, we don't care which serial numbers we have in stock. We don't care, what we received. All we care about is which serial numbers we're selling, so that if a customer tries to return something, we can look up that serial number and make sure that's the unit we sold to them. So from the devices and from within Business Central, we can track those serial numbers when we sell that product, so that we can track it for returns or warranty and those types of processes. Okay, and we can also look up those individual serial numbers from any of these screens here. Anyway, that's a little bit on inquiry. Let's go back to picking. So again, to get to that inquiry mode, all I did on mine was I hit a hotkey that I set up, but I can come into the menu and do that item inquiry on any item, and away we go. And there's another app on the main screen where if I just want to start that without going into a pick, I can just start that item inquiry, look up an item or scan a barcode, and it'll find that item for me. Now, speaking of scanning barcodes, I want to actually do this pick. I've been talking a lot about other stuff, but I actually want to execute this pick. So the way I do that is I walk up to the bin I'm supposed to pick from. So it's telling me, go to this bin, find this item, this quantity, this unit of measure, and pick it. So the first thing I need to do is tell the system that I'm grabbing this product from the right bin. So again, this is in a warehouse environment. Retail environment, you don't care about the bin, but in a warehouse, I want to make sure the system knows I'm picking it from the right product or from the right bin, and I didn't just find some of this product sitting in receiving or something else and stole it from there and messed up my inventory. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scan a barcode for that bin. And just to give you an idea of the types of barcodes I'm scanning these style of barcodes. Those will be printed from Business Central. I've just got a bunch of sample barcodes in the system. But we don't care what barcode format you use. Typically in retail, it's going to be a UPC code or GS1 or whatever it is that you're scanning. But if you want to generate your own barcodes for bins or for items or anything you like, you can do that as well. Okay, so I'm going to first of all, in my case here, I'm going to scan that bin so the system knows which bin I'm actually picking from. There's a little bit of screen lag here for some reason. Not sure what's going on. Anyway, it tells me which bin I'm picking from there. And then the next step is to actually tell the system which item I'm picking. So I'm actually going to scan that first item. I could scan either of these, but I'll scan that first item there to tell the system what I'm actually picking. So I scan the item. And when I do that, it's going to pop up and show me that picture of the item so that I know I'm picking the right product. And then it's going to ask me for the quantity. In my case, I'm just going to hit enter. You can change the quantity here. You can default this quantity to 1. So every time I scan that item, I don't have to enter a quantity. It just increments by 1. You can set up all sorts of rules for this. There's a little calculator. You can change the unit of measure if I want to pick by cases instead of eaches, things like that. I can do it. But in my case, I'm just going to pick those 2, and that's it. I'm done, and I've handled that. So now I don't have to hand in any paperwork. I don't have to type anything in. It's all done as I'm picking. Business Central now knows that I've processed this line here, and it's done. So if a customer phones up, I mean, typically we wouldn't care until we've shipped it. But if a customer phones up, I can tell you exactly what the situation of this order is. Yeah, they've picked it in the warehouse and they haven't shipped it. And I know that immediately in real time. Okay. All right. So basically I would go through, I process this. Oh, actually, you know what? I forgot something important when we're dealing with retail. I'm just going to come in here. I just did enter to start the screen. I'm just going to say, yeah, I actually picked 0 because I'm going to show you something else. When we're talking about, shipping to retail stores, quite often, and this may not be your situation, but quite often we do see where we do a shipment once a week to a store, maybe, unless it's a rush. But once a week, we'll ship out a pallet of product or a bunch of boxes of product to a store. And we want to sort of, keep track of that information during that week while we're picking it and staging it. Now, one of the ways we can do that is with something called license plating. And license plating allows us to go in and define a pallet or a box. And here I'm going to use the menu. Normally we just scan a barcode to create a license plate where you have a bunch of pre-printed barcodes that say, I'm starting a license plate. And again, a license plate is a pallet or a box that can hold multiple items, multiple orders, all of that kind of stuff in it. So in this case, I'd say start a license plate, and I'm going to start a brand new one. And what it will do is come in here and tell me I've started this license plate, and now I can start scanning into that. And the idea behind this is now I've got this box sitting over in my staging area, and I can keep adding to that as I go. And I know exactly what's in it, which orders I put in that box and everything else. And I can ship this box to the store. At the store, they can just receive this license plate, right? So they're getting a package, they can scan that, and they can receive everything in that license plate all at once. Okay, so this does allow us to group products together, group orders together for a store before we ship it out. So that license plating is a bit of an advanced module, but it does add a lot of value if you are doing that staging of product, during prep for the store. So there, I just scanned that item, and we'll do it. And so what it did was it actually added that quantity to this license plate. And when I scan that license plate for shipping or receiving, we know exactly what's in it, which orders are in it, everything else. And there's a bunch of other things you can do. I'm not going to get into it in a lot of detail, but if you have e-commerce type stuff that you ship directly from the warehouse. We can do tote picking. We can do a whole bunch of other things to sort of streamline that that warehouse management side of it. Okay. Now, I'm going to exit out of this. Now, after that, yeah, somebody's messing around in my Business Central, but that's okay. Now, after that, I've picked it, I've shipped it, everything else. We can go into the shipping screen here to actually ship that product out and do everything from the handheld device. So after I've picked it, I've dropped it off at shipping. Somebody can go into shipping, load up that transfer order, say, yes, this is ready to go, and post it right from the handheld device and print out the packing slip and everything they need to ship that to the store. Okay. Now, when we get to the store, it's pretty straightforward. The store, again, probably running a device more like this, but the store, when they come in, they'll just go into the receiving side of it. They've got a shipment coming in to receive. They'll grab the purchase order or transfer order number from the warehouse that's coming in, or they'll scan the packing slip because the packing slip will have a barcode on it. They'll scan that, they'll open it up, and it'll give them a list of everything they need to receive from the DC. And this, again, could be different purchase orders, different transfer orders on the screen. In fact, this is actually a whole bunch of different purchase orders on this particular screen. And now I can just start scanning. If you use that license plate capability, then I can just scan that license plate barcode and it will receive everything that's in that package. So if I scan a box barcode and I've got several of each of these in that box, it'll automatically receive those. So if you trust your distribution center and you don't want to scan every product that's coming in, you can just scan that package. And there is a question on, paperless environment. Well, yeah, you don't have to print paper anywhere within the system. If you're using this, you don't need to print out that pick ticket if you don't want. You can just choose it from the list. Same thing here, right? I'm going to get a packing slip in the package that I'm receiving. Like everybody ships a paper copy of the packing slip, but you don't have to if you don't want. Like if you're shipping from the distribution center to the retail store, you can just have a label on that box that I can scan to bring up the right purchase order. Or if it's just printed on the label on the box, I can just choose it from the list here, open it up, and I've got everything I need to receive. And now all I have to do is start scanning in the product. If you're not using license plating, I would actually just start scanning the product I'm receiving. So again, I'll go in, I'll scan one of the items that I'm receiving, and I'll just do this, 1908-S guy, that third one down. I don't have to know what it is I'm receiving. I just scan the barcode, it finds it in the list, optionally shows me a picture there and lets me enter the quantity that I found in that box, and I'm done. I've received it. Again, now if we look in the system, we know how many we've got. I didn't have to type anything in. I didn't have to hand in paperwork. I didn't have to do anything else. I scan the barcode, enter the quantity, and we have updated real-time information in our system. So customer phones up, hey, do you have any of those blue chairs in stock? Yeah, I sure do. I just got them in a few seconds ago. We know that immediately. We don't have to wait. All right. So that's a little bit on the receiving. And if you have serial numbers and lot numbers, we can handle that, all that kind of stuff as well. Okay. There's a couple other questions there I'll maybe get to at the end. All right. So that's the receiving side, right? Now let me actually switch over. I was doing that in the warehouse location. I'm going to switch over to the store. So let's talk a little bit more about what you might use or might see in the store itself. So for that, I'm going to switch over to this device here, right? So this device is here on this screen here. I'll just minimize that guy. So this little device here, again, about $600 you run in the store. And on this one, when I open up the application, it shows me that it hasn't been configured yet. And I did that to sort of illustrate, how easy it is to get into barcoding. So of course you need Business Central set up ahead of time. And once it is, once you've installed the app in Business Central, I need to connect this device to Business Central. So I get the device. After we set it up in Business Central generates a document for us that we can actually scan to set up the device. So a barcode to install the application, a barcode to configure it, and a barcode to log in. So at this point on the device, it's saying, hey, scan your barcode to configure the device. So that is what I'm going to do. As soon as I can pick up my sheet here, I'm going to go in, scan that barcode for the configuration, and then I'm going to scan the barcode to log in, right? And when I do that, oops, sorry. Sorry, I keep tapping the wrong stuff on my screen here. Let's go back to that guy. So it's going to come in. It's going to ask me to log in, scan the barcode to log in. And right now it's going in and it's connecting up to Business Central. And we'll just say wait this time because it's Business Central is busy. But it'll take a few seconds the first time because what it's doing is it's actually coming in, logging into Business Central, loading the application on the device, and we're done. So simple as that. It was a couple scans after I've got it set up in Business Central, and now I can use this device in my store or in my warehouse. Okay, and there's a question here on sort of a paperless retail environment where I might want to go out and build up a sales order, right? So I simply, go in, enter the information in that people want to buy, and they go out and they pick it and do everything from the handheld device. You could also set it up if you want it. Now it's a little additional effort, maybe another little bit of implementation time, where I could actually come in here and I could start a new order right on the handheld device. So that's the self-shopping type of capability. And there's actually devices designed specifically for self-shopping. And just since we're talking about it, I'll show one here. So these usually have a pistol grip, but this is a device that people use for self-serve shopping, where it's very simple, it's not fancy, and what they'll be able to do is go in and scan in everything they want to buy. As they're picking the product off the shelf themselves, they scan it in, they go to the till, and everything is there. They just pay for it at the till. So there is the capability to do that self-shopping capability as well, using a very simple device that the customers probably won't steal from you, and that sort of thing. Okay, so that's the self-shopping stuff. But back to this, let's briefly talk about what we would do here from the store. So again, we looked at receiving already. Now the shipping side, since I'm talking about that, this is really managing the sales order. So there's a couple of things we would do here. So on the shipping side, this would be if I get a phone order and I need to ship it out, or if I've entered all the details in the system and I now need to go and pick it from the shelf, I can open this up and this shows me everything that's on the sales order in the system. And from here, I can go in and scan everything in. So now typically you're going to be doing the scanning at the cash register and things like that, but I can use the handheld device to actually go out there, look at all the details on that order and start scanning it in. And it's very much like everything else I've been scanning. I simply walk up to the item and I scan the barcode and that's it. And you'll notice on this one, it doesn't have the bin or anything like that because in the retail environment, we don't have bins. So I simply walk up, I find the device the item that I'm interested in, and I simply scan that barcode. And I don't know what I did with my barcode sheet. There's my barcode sheet. So I simply come in here and I'll scan one of the items I need to pick, and that's it. And exactly the same thing. It'll pop up the picture and let me enter the quantity, and away I go. And keep in mind, to get to this point where I'm actually able to scan the barcodes of these items and interact with them and everything else was very simple. After I've got the software set up in Business Central, this took me 2 minutes to get it working on the handheld device. Now, in real life, the first device you set up might take you half an hour or an hour if you're not familiar with it. But after that, it's a couple of minutes per device, and you're up and running with barcoding in your store. Right. And one of the important things in the stores is inventory counts, right? So yes, we can do receiving. I showed you the receiving on the other device. It's exactly the same here. We can move things around. So if we want to transfer, by the way, this ad hoc move, we can use that to transfer product from the store back to the DC if we like, right? Or vice versa. If you wanted to use it in the DC, you typically wouldn't, but in the store, I can come in here and I can do a movement from the store back to the DC, or I can go into the system, do a transfer order in the store back to the DC, and then pick it and ship it on the handheld device. Okay. But one of the important aspects of the retail side is making sure your inventory is accurate. And the way we do that is with the inventory count. So we can do cycle counts or full physical counts on the device. And the nice thing about the inventory counts, and this accounts for inventory adjustments as well. But what we can do here is we can go in, and I've set up an inventory count in the system that has, we're going to have 2 people counting. So I've just named these things sheet 1 and sheet 2. So if you're familiar with paper-based counting, you've got a bunch of sheets of paper that you write the quantities in, or even write the product in and then the quantity. When we're doing scanning, we do the same thing. We just call them sheet 1 or sheet 2, or you have Joe, Fred, Frank, anybody that's doing the counting. And this tells us what we're supposed to go out and count. Now, there's 2 ways of doing it. The first way is I can actually give them a list of items they need to double check. So that's typically used in cycle counts. We can say, hey, I want to count all my expensive items today, or I want to count all my fast moving items today, or I want to count all my, candy today, or whatever you want to do. And generate a count sheet, or everything in the, aisle 1, I want to count today, those types of things. And it'll generate a list of items for you to go out and find and count and double check. The other way to do it, if we're doing a full count, or if you just send somebody out to count a specific item or something like that, we don't have to tell them what to count. So that's what the 0 means. For these 2, I haven't told the people what they're supposed to count. They're just going to go out and count everything in the store. So maybe this guy is counting everything in the back room. This guy is counting everything in the retail space. And the way that works, if I open up one of these sheets, because I haven't told them what they're supposed to count, it's going to show up and start out blank, and they're just going to go through and scan everything they find. Okay. Now, if I told them what to count, it would list all the things they need to count, along with that shelf number I talked about earlier. So that shelf number is, where that product is likely stored, right? So again, I could have the same product in several areas, but the shelf number will track where I've actually counted it. So let's say I walk up to shelf 1. I've got a barcode at shelf 1, or maybe I just have a piece of paper that has the barcode for shelf 1. And I simply come in, I say, yep, I'm counting at shelf 1. And you can see at the bottom here, it tells me, yes, I know I'm counting at shelf 1. And then I simply go in and scan the item that I'm counting at shelf 1. Again, you can have it show the picture just to make sure you're counting the right thing. And I enter the quantity that I've counted, and that's it. And I just keep doing that. So maybe now I move to a different shelf and scan a different item. The same idea. Oh, I actually accidentally scanned the same item, but actually that's a good example, right? So in shelf 1, I counted 213 of these. In shelf 3, I counted 11. So now if you go back and you realize you have a discrepancy, maybe, now we've got 224 counted. Maybe they entered this 3 accidentally and they're only supposed to count 21. I know exactly where they've made the mistake. I know they need to go back to shelf 1 and recount this quantity. And they don't have to go through and recount everything. Or maybe we don't know where we counted this, but this tells us exactly where we found those items and where we can go and double check them. Okay, so that shelf is really nice. And this is great because, again, I don't have to have bins turned on or anything like that to segregate that inventory out. I can track exactly where I've counted it, and the system looks after making sure that we know we have 224 of these and compares it to what we're supposed to have and everything else. Okay, so that's a little bit on the inventory count from the handheld perspective. I simply scan the item and enter the quantity, and we're good to go. Now, again, I could have listed 20 items for them to go and find and count, and it would be exactly the same thing. They just scan the item, and it'll find it in the list, they enter the quantity, and we're good to go. So I like to spend some time on inventory counts because they're very important, right? Again, you want accurate and timely information in the system. So by doing cycle counts, right, just grabbing a scanner every day and running out there for 10 minutes at the start of the day or at the end of the day and counting a row or counting a shelf or something like that every day is going to keep that inventory accurate. So when the customer phones up or when we're planning purchasing or transfers, we know exactly what's there. Our inventory is going to be very accurate. We're not going to overstock. We're not going to run out of stock. we know exactly what's going on because we can run out there with a little device like this, 10 minutes a day, and count that inventory very quickly and easily, right? I'm just going through and scanning those items. If you don't care about the shelf number, you don't have to scan it. I simply go in there, scan the item without the shelf number. Oh, why do I keep scanning the same item? Let me scan a different item because scan that one again. Okay, so scan this item and, you know, found 21 or whatever. So that's how we do that count, right? Very simple. Okay, now what happens when we go back into Business Central for that? Let me just load up the inventory counts here. So the person managing the inventory count, maybe the store manager or whatever, whoever is looking after it, they'll see the count that was done. So I'll open this up, and here's, you know, there's a bunch of details here, but here's the items that they actually counted in the store. So sheet 1, we've got a few items. I can open that up and look at them. Sheet 2, we haven't counted anything. So now what we would actually do is go in and see, you know, did we make any mistakes on this count? And I'm just going to, you know, do all inventory, and I'm going to sort by the dollar amount difference. And this is going to tell us if there's any discrepancies between what we counted and what we expected to have, right? So here, it's telling me I was supposed to have 0 in stock of this item, and I counted 224. So I've got a $366,000 difference in that inventory count. That's probably not right, you know. So this tells us if we screwed up on our inventory count very quickly. And so if I did screw up that badly, like probably what happened is, you know, they counted, this was supposed to be 22 and they counted 224 or whatever it happens to be. And we can rerun that, by the way, and show the details. And the details tell us exactly who counted it. So expanded. So where it was counted, all of that sort of thing. And we can see the count quantities and all that kind of stuff as well. So we can say, oh yeah, there's no way they counted 213 of these. I'm going to send them to double check it and everything else, and we can fix it up. And then to send them to double check it, and in retail environments, don't do this that often. But if you do have a larger count, what you can do is you can use this generate recount sheets. You can say, hey, you know what, anything that's up by more than, you know, $100 or anything that's up by more than 5%, I want to automatically add that to a recount sheet. And what that'll do is just generate a list of items that match this criteria on a new sheet that I can go out and now double check. So instead of printing out a report and using a highlighter and post-it notes to double check things, I can do this. And on the scanner, we just get a list of items to go and double check. We know exactly who counted them the first time and what the count quantity is, what the recount quantity was, everything else. So we've got a nice audit trail of what happened when we do that count. So again, in retail stores, if you're doing a cycle count where you're only counting maybe 20 or 30 items a day, you may not need to use this, but in distribution centers, it's pretty important. And if you're doing a full count in a retail location where you've got hundreds of items, then this might be very useful as well. All right, so that's, you know, largely it on the handheld devices. You know, I can go in there, pretty much scan anything, any inventory activity or operation I can perform on the handheld device. Now, one other thing, after we've done all that scanning and everything else, you know, you can ship from the handheld device. So in the distribution center, we might want to, you know, post that transfer order, post that warehouse shipment. It'll generate a packing slip or a bill of lading or whatever we need for it. But we also have to sometimes do shipping from retail environments. And we have 2 ways of doing that. One is with scanning. So with barcode scanning, I can go in and I can scan exactly the items that I'm shipping, right? So I can define the boxes, scan the items that I'm going to ship in those boxes, and generate all my shipping labels and everything else. And this can also be handy in those retail environments, because you don't necessarily, you know, if you don't need the you know, handheld device for doing receiving or anything, but you do a bunch of shipping, you still might want to scan those UPC codes on the items to ship them out. So I'll very quickly show you how that works, and then I'll show you a much simpler way of shipping in a retail environment as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to get into a lot of details on this, but I'm going to show you actually how we ship using a barcode scanning. Okay, and yeah, for some reason my Business Central is very slow today. Okay, so I'm just going to back up here, and what I'm going to do is, let's say I'm in this retail environment. I'm going to grab an order that I need to ship out today. And I'm going to scan all the barcodes to ship that product. As soon as it wakes up here. All right, so what we've got is these are all the sales orders I need to ship. Let's say this is the one I need to ship out because, you know, I've filtered down to an address or to a carrier I want to use or something like that. So I'll simply say, yep, I want to go in and actually package up this order now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the sort of the hardest way we can do this and illustrate how we can actually package this order up. And this is telling us how we're supposed to ship it. So maybe a customer phoned up and said, yeah, just ship it out overnight or whatever. We don't know how we're supposed to ship this product yet. Like, are we using UPS? Are we using FedEx? How are we actually shipping this? We don't know yet. So the first thing I'm going to do to package this order up is I'm going to tell it which boxes I'm using. So I'm going to say, I'm going to scan a barcode here. And, oh, sorry, wrong barcode. Jeez. So I'm going to scan a package that I'm using. And what that did was it created a box for me. This is a 2x1x1 box with a default weight of 0 pounds. We're going to either weigh that box using a scale, and it'll bring the weight in right in here, or it's going to calculate the weight based on what I put into that box. And this is now where we get into the barcode scanning for the items. And the reason we do this is because if I'm scanning the barcodes on the items that I'm packaging, I know I'm not shipping the wrong product. I'm verifying the right product that I'm shipping out the door. So to do this, I'm going to scan one of those items, and it packages that item in this box for me. So this item is in this box, it calculates the weight of that box, and I can just keep doing that. So I'll package another one of those, and maybe one of those, and now I've got these items in that box, and it's ready for a label. Now I need to package the rest of it, so I'll start another box, and I will just scan in all the items. So that's basically how it works. You don't have to do this, right? The advantage of this is I'm actually scanning those barcodes, so I'm getting that inventory accuracy, and I'm not going to ship the wrong product out to the customer. And then at the end, I can say, you know what, get me my shipping label. And because we didn't know if it was UPS or FedEx or anything else, it goes out in real time, and it tells me which carriers I can use for the shipment, and gives me all the pricing and everything else I need for those carriers. So we'll give it a sec. Usually it's the FedEx server that slows things down because the FedEx server is not working. But this is a shipment in Canada, so it gives me Canada Post, but that'd be USPS or whatever it is. This tells me exactly what I'm going to pay for the shipping based on my account with the carrier. Okay, so if I choose this UPS expedited, hit OK, what that's going to do is it's going to print out the shipping label for me automatically from UPS, get me all the tracking information, send an email to the customer with the tracking details and a link that has your logo on it, your advertising, like your store brand, everything else on that tracking page. So the customer gets a nice page they can go to get their tracking information. It has all your information and your links on it. Okay, so anyway, this is the the label just prints out. We've got box 1 of 2 and box 2 of 2. That tracking number is live with UPS. So if I went to ups.com, if this wasn't a sample label, that would be available and everything else. And just as a quick aside, as it is kind of neat, I'll go into Gmail this if I'm the customer, right? So I'm the customer that's expecting that order from you. This is the email I just got here. And it, well, that's from 9 days ago. But anyway, the email will come in just like this, and it'll have this. Oh, we just saw the right email come in, and it'll have this page that pops up. This will have your logo on it up here, your advertising, your links, and the only thing that changes is this is UPS or FedEx or whatever. That'll change, but this is what the customer will see when they go to look for their tracking information. So it's quite nice. And just as an aside, there's the one that. Oops. I just archived it by mistake. Boy, I'm not doing well on my clicking today. There's the one that was just sent for this order. If I click on it, same thing. Here's my tracking page, tracking number, everything else. This is what the customer sees. It's very professional looking, has all your advertising and logos and everything on it. Okay. Now, that is the way we can do shipping with barcode scanning, right? Because I'm just scanning all these items. I never have to type anything in. I just go beep, 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 and I ship the stuff out the door. But there's a simpler way of shipping from a retail environment. So if you're doing domestic US shipments and you're using UPS or USPS, there's a much easier way of doing the shipping. and you get discounted rates, the maximum discounted rates for USPS and UPS without having an account for USPS or UPS. So the way that works, if I'm in a sales order here, so I'm going to open up a sales order within the system, open it up, and I've got, this, give me a sec here. I've got this product I need to ship out the door, and I just need a shipping label. So what I do is I come in here and I say, yep, give me a shipping label. It pops up and I say, yeah, the box on this one, it's going to be a 14-inch box by 6 inches by 8 inches, and it weighs 12 pounds. Okay, and I'm going to ship it UPS ground. Now again, in this environment, with this tool here for creating the shipping labels, you've got UPS or USPS or your options, and you can choose whatever whatever service those carriers offer. And so the customer says, well, what if I ship it at ground? How much is that going to cost me? So I can just check that. I can say, what is it? Oh, this is an international shipment. Okay, I'm probably on the wrong order here because we don't want to ship it internationally. Oh, that's why. Okay, let's do this again. So we've got our package here. Let's get the rate. And the reason for that is I was shipping it out of a warehouse that made it an international shipment. So we support domestic US shipments. So yeah, UPS ground, that's going to cost us $20. We're going to charge the customer $23 because we're getting discounted rates. We can charge the published rate. And we can actually make some money on this shipping charge, right? And I say, well, why is it so much? Well, if I go into shipping options here, we can see it's set to residential delivery, and we had it set to signature. If I say we don't want to do a signature, oh, and by the way, in here, we can also do things like COD, right? So we can ship it COD and stuff like that. But I'm going to come in here now without the signature. If I get that rate, it's going to come in. Oh, it's a little cheaper. Yeah, I'll take that way. Great. Let's print out the shipping label, and it'll do exactly the same thing. It'll print my UPS shipping label, and I slap it on the box, and out the door it goes. So that is a very simple way of doing shipping from retail environments if you're using those two carriers as domestic US shipments. Okay. And then once I've shipped it, of course, it adds my freight cost onto the order automatically if you've got it set up to do that. So we can see the shipping charge on there. We can go in and see all the tracking information for all the packages we've shipped. We can refund it or reprint it. All that kind of stuff is there as well. So that's a very simplified way of doing shipping. And that's great for retail environments, right? Especially if you're getting e-commerce stuff coming in or whatever. I can very quickly go into the order, tell it which boxes I'm using, get my labels, out the door it goes. Okay, and that's, again, for retail where, most of the time, if you're brick and mortar and people are coming in the store, you're not going to be doing a lot of shipping. But once in a while, you probably do have the requirement to do shipping. This is a great tool for it. Okay. All right. So there were a bunch of questions on there. Oh yeah, and there is a question. That's a good question on receiving, where especially in produce, that we do see that a lot. And a few things I didn't mention on receiving if you're doing that kind of stuff, where you order a specific UPC code, maybe. I can't think of a good example, but bananas or something like that, and it's UPC code 123, but they ship basically the equivalent item, but it's a different UPC code that you actually have to scan in. Well, yes, you can actually set that up. So there's two ways you can do it. If you know, a number of those UPC codes ahead of time, within Business Central, you can set up cross references. So you can list, if you've got your main item like bananas, and there's maybe 10 UPC codes you could receive for that, you could set up those 10 UPC codes ahead of time, so that when you receive it, it automatically knows that, yes, that UPC code refers to this item. The other option is we can do that dynamically. So let me actually just clear my desk here a little, and I'm going to show my camera again and show this guy. So what we can do there, if I go into receiving again, oh, somebody is messing with my stuff. All right, well, maybe I won't go into receiving. What it allows me to do is if I scan a barcode it doesn't recognize, it'll automatically pop up and ask me what what UPC code that item on the purchase order is supposed to be, and it'll cross-reference automatically at that point. So if I get a substituted item, I can scan that substitute UPC code and it'll automatically do that substitution for me. The other thing that you see quite often in produce and meat and everything else is, I'll order 10 pounds of something, right? I'm ordering in pounds, and the vendor will ship me 10.5 or 9.8 or whatever. So you can also use this to do over receiving. So if I go in, I can actually receive 10.5 pounds, even though the purchase order says 10. So you set all that up in Business Central, the ability to over receive, and it will handle that as well. And you can under receive as well if you prefer. Okay. So hopefully that answered that question. And then, yes, you can create your own barcodes. So there's a question on whether you can create your own custom barcodes for kits or promotions, those sorts of things. Absolutely. You can do all of that. The kitting is a good example where, in a warehouse environment, we do have this thing called assembly, where you can actually build up kits on the handheld device if you like. So if you've predefined kits like a bundle that you want to ship as a single unit, we can do that here. Or you can create your own UPC code to reference a kit of several potential items. It's a question on ERP integration. So what we're focused on today, of course, is Business Central. So everything I've shown you today is really focused on Business Central. Now, we do have some customers running Business Central as their warehouse management solution and running a separate ERP or POS for the remaining operations, and they just use Business Central for warehouse management. But typically, if you're going to be running Business Central, you're probably going to be using it for your store management, for your warehouse management, for accounting, everything else as well. All right. Okay, I think that's got it for the questions. Anything else, that Vishal or anybody that you'd like me to cover at all? Well, I guess there are some other questions here.